Imagine one day you woke up in a vessel that wasn't your body. Instead, you were in a shell that was anything but human. You were made of steel and wire and hardware, but you still had the soul of your true self, one final anchor that made sure you stayed you. Would that experience not be worse than simply being a robot where you couldn't feel anything at all? Because now, as a cyborg, you craved human experiences, perhaps subconsciously, but that would hide a crisis behind layers of stoicism, living like a ghost in your own shell. Well, such is the case for Major Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell, the star of our video today, whose anatomy we want to explore, not so much because we want to talk about what weapons she has access to, but because we want to discuss her ghost and how it interacts with a world where she's just a shell and what makes her, or doesn't make her, a human. It's going to be a fascinating philosophical ride, so let's jump on in. Is Motoko not human anymore? Ghost in the Shell takes place in the future of 2029, and we're introduced to this dystopian future overrun with technology where humans aren't exactly humans anymore, thanks to the hyper-advancement of cybernetic technology that can augment the human body with mechanical body parts. And it doesn't stop there. Cybernetics can completely replace the human body as well as internal organs. Even the brain is augmented with a casing known as the cyber brain, which allows one access to the internet or any other network really without requiring physical interface. But that doesn't take the soul away. In a world that's discarded the biological, there's little room for the metaphysical, so the concept of a soul remains ambiguous, much like in the real world, where the more technical term is consciousness. And this consciousness, or its existence, is not only acknowledged in Ghost in the Shell, but it's central to the story. With the cyborg body being the shell, it only makes sense that the term coined for said consciousness would rightfully be the ghost. This brings us to our protagonist, Major Motoko Kusanagi, who works as the assault team leader for the Public Security Section 9. She's not a regular cyborg. The half-human, half-machine identification isn't for her. Instead, all of her is cybernetic. A full-body prosthesis, if you will. This is established very early in the 1995 film during the opening credits, which introduce us to the Major literally being assembled like a high-end machine. The only human thing about her is her brain. The rest of her is mechanically built, almost as if she were a streamlined transformer. Born from code, submerged in man-made fluid that's analogous to amniotic fluid in the mother's womb, and assembled with the help of a computer, the Major is as cybernetic as they come, but she's not a robot. The key distinction between a robot and a cyborg is that there is zero human biomatter in a robot. On the other hand, a cyborg cannot be a cyborg even with a completely synthetic body if they possess no human matter, bringing us to the Major's brain and spinal cord, the two physical remnants from her time as a human. And with a human brain and spine comes a human consciousness. Her ghost allows her to have sentience and be aware of her existence or who she is. Naturally, this comes with her severely questioning her humanity. While being a cyborg is the norm in her universe, Major Kusunagi struggled with this philosophical dilemma of whether she was human or not, more so than others, because the others are part machine and part flesh. Even the most extreme iterations of the cyborgs are 92% machine and 8% flesh, unlike the Major, who barely retains any human parts, barring the aforementioned brain and spine, and, along with those, her ghost. This gives rise to the question, is Major Motoko Kusanagi a human? My answer would be that there is humanity to her, but she's not really a human. I say this because it's not enough to simply have sentience and awareness and the ability to feel, as seen with the Major's history with Hideo Kuze or the Puppet Master. Instead, you also need to fit the biological bill of being a human. For starters, as a complete cyborg, the Major is not mortal. A consciousness doesn't age. The ghost can change its shell. To be human, on the other hand, you first and foremost need to be made of cells, the fundamental unit of life. There needs to be homeostasis to maintain those cells, their growth, their multiplication, the formation of DNA that carries the genetic code, the ability to metabolize, the ability to respond to stimuli, especially mentally, and, most importantly, the long-term ability to evolve. Last but certainly not least, there needs to be mortality, brought by the degradation and death of the very cells that have sustained the life of said human. Major Motoko Kusanagi's body will never experience this. She might retain a percent of her humanity due to her ghost and some of its memories and even its feelings, but she's not human. Not anymore. There's also a contrast between the Major's mind and body, at least in the 1995 film, for which Hiroyuki Okiura, the key animation supervisor and character designer, made changes from the original design made by Masamune Shirao. His goal was to create a distinction between Major Kusanagi's strong and youthful body from her more mature and far older consciousness. As such, the ghost was made to be wiser and older than its shell. Then, there's her personality, as the Major is not only intelligent and powerful, but also strong-willed. She's considered to be an independent and self-made woman. Notice how traits such as wisdom, being strong-willed, and independence are very human, unlike the Major's physical body. It's a combination of these very convoluted factors that make us question whether Major Kusanagi is human or not, a concept that can only be addressed with a highly nuanced take. What actually happened to her as a kid? The details for the birth, or rather the cyberization of Major Kusanagi vary between Standalone Complex and Arise. In Arise, her birth happened under very unusual circumstances as her mother died in an accident while she was pregnant with her. However, the fetus miraculously survived and was saved by doctors who implanted its brain into a cyber body, thus cyberizing her before she could even be born. In Standalone Complex, however, Kusunagi, which is not her original name by the way, was a kid who, alongside her family, had been involved in a plane crash. She and a boy named Hideo Kuze were the only survivors. Kusunagi was given urgent care and kept in a coma, while Kuze was paralyzed face down, barring his left arm. She was eventually given an extensive prosthetic transition, turning her into an extreme cyborg and creating the titular Ghost in the Shell. But leaving behind a human body to become a majorly mechanical being, despite the advanced augmentation, is heavy on the soul. And this would plant the seeds for what would grow to be a tree of doubt within Kusanagi in the future. At the eye of the storm was Hideo Kuze, who, out of sympathy for her comatose state back in the hospital, would fold paper cranes to wish her well. Kusanagi learned about what Kuze did for her after being adopted by foster parents following her cyberization. Moved by Kuze's efforts, she began to return to the hospital daily to meet him. She chose to bond with him as a friend with whom he had no prior connection. However, there was a way for Kusanagi to have Kuze by her side, which she desperately wanted as she had fallen in love with him, proving that she was capable of human emotions. She offered him the chance to become a cyborg. Kuze accepted with the caveat that he would only do so if he could continue folding cranes with his non-paralyzed left hand. Kusanagi was made to demonstrate it to sell cyborghood to Kuze, but due to a lack of fine movement control with her new cyborg body, she failed to make the paper cranes. This broke her heart as she failed the one person who had motivated her to live again. As such, she promised that she would return when she could fold as many paper cranes with her hand as he had done for her. Kusanagi kept her feelings in her heart and regretted not having been true to them before, while remaining oblivious to the fact that they would face one another again. What is a cyberbrain? One of the most important aspects of a Ghost in the Shell cyborg is the cyberbrain, which is the case around the organic brain. The brain is the complex neural pathway, and the casing is essentially the router enclosing it and operating as an antenna and conductor of radio waves. Together, they're an organic-synthetic wetware hybrid known as the cyberbrain that every cyborg must possess. Motoko Kusanagi acquired this feature with the implantation of its user interface in the sub-occipital nerve region of her cranium. The opening scene of the 1995 film shows us Kusanagi with slots or ports at the nape of her neck. This also means that these slots must be protected, as seen with Bato plugging them before Kusanagi takes a dive, because not doing so could cause the water to breach the system and damage it, as these ports are the access point for the cyberbrain. The point of this port isn't to help her operate, that's automatic, but it does allow Kusanagi to connect to other networks and think faster, the former being somewhat similar to an Ethernet port. Needless to say, this is a crucial element for Motoko's net diving, which she's a pro at. What truly conceptualized a ghost? A ghost is the colloquial term for the soul or the consciousness of a person in this universe, and regardless of how mechanical a body gets, the existence of the ghost will allow the retention of one's humanity or individuality even when they cease to be human for the most part. The concept was borrowed by creator Masamune Shirow from Arthur Koestler's book on structuralism named The Ghost in the Machine. Clearly, the title of the book went on to be an inspiration for the title of Shirow's work. For context, structuralism is considered to be an intellectual and methodological approach rooted in the social sciences that would suggest that human behavior or culture needs to be analyzed as part of an interrelated network. They cannot be perceived in isolation because underlying social structures are believed to shape all human experiences and social systems. The machine in the title of the essay seemingly refers to said interconnected, complex social structure, while the ghost is the individual. Before Koestler, however, it was Gilbert Ryle who associated the mind to the physical condition of the brain in a mockery of conventional understandings of mind-body dualism, which separate the mind and the body. As per Ryle's argument, the human brain has seemingly grown and built upon its earlier, more primitive forms that we see across humans. With such primitive brain structures serving as the foundation, there are situations where higher logic is overridden by intense emotions such as anger, hate, envy, or any kind of malign emotion for that matter. This, in a way, validates the phrase of showing one's true colors, which is used when an otherwise logical or stable person, for lack of a better word, crashes out in response to some kind of psychological stimuli that cracks through their reasoning, bringing forth their primitive foundations from their ancestors. Much like Ryle, Shirow denies dualism as well, perceiving the human mind and brain to be one cohesive element, which is why he incorporates the ghost into the shell, not just as a physical trait, unlike a standard metaphysical soul, but also as a phenomenon that is complexly layered with the cyborg anatomy. So the brain here is considered to be one part of the whole neural network, wherein if an organ is removed, the automatic nerves and the ghost of said organ will disappear until either the organ or the stimulus of its existence is mechanically recreated. This is similar to blind people seeing nothing. For us, seeing nothing means seeing black as our eyelids shut, preventing the penetration of light. But for blind people, the concept of sight simply doesn't exist, that is, unless they're partially blind. Seeing black is still seeing black. They know what sight is because they have either lost their vision at some point, or they know of its existence from others and must navigate a world that has been curated primarily for people with sight. Towards the end of the 1995 film, Kusunagi and the puppet master merge their ghosts to create a new ghost or being separate from both Kusunagi and the puppet master altogether. This act is symbolic of birth, where two come together to create a third. This is further established by the new body of the Kusunagi puppet master hybrid being that of a child, wherein ghosts retain immortality through their progeny. In the manga, Kusunagi implies that this life form can create its own life forms. As such, it is the ghost that not only retains the humanity of a being, but once again brings a mechanical cyborg closer to its roots, much like the higher logical reasoning of a brain being occasionally suppressed to give light to the foundational primitive impulses which are part and parcel of being human. And it's poetic that this is experienced first and foremost by the one cyborg who's contemplated her existence and humanity the most throughout the story. Unlike Kusunagi, the puppet master is an artificial intelligence, and as such, doesn't have the same kind of anatomy as Kusunagi or any other cyborg. But Section 9 could recognize the human-like personality and traits within the AI's mind structure, which were similar to a ghost image, giving rise to complex ideas on the concept of self in the face of two vastly separate mechanical structures having a similar blueprint for their respective ghosts. But the humanity that's retained by the ghost gets corrupted in the face of concepts such as ghost hacking. Hacking is as simple as it sounds. The cyberbrain is directly connected to the network, so when the barriers of the cyberbrain are bypassed by an outsider against the cyborg's will, the ghost within gets hijacked. Something similar can be attained if one has the target cyborg's ghost intrusion key, which is a consensual access to their ghost without the need for hacking. But humanity in Ghost in the Shell faces its biggest corruption in the face of ghost dubbing, which is the act of copying or transferring a ghost from one artificial brain to another. Think of it as a Xerox copy and a pen drive at once, as it copies like a Xerox, with each copy gradually. Due to the data elements here being a product of human personality, the deteriorating nature of dubs causes instability of said data tied to the identity of the ghost. This turns what should simply be a machine into something more human while corrupting the true essence of what should be a human. We see this at its worst in Innocence, where dubs are made of human girls and these dubbed ghosts are copied into artificial female shells. The presence of human ghosts of girls within these shells causes them to feel more real and more emotionally convincing, as they can now react organically to the heinous physical and psychological exploitation meted out to them, while their sense of selves continues to be violated, even when their bodies are not. Not affecting the original body and sticking to androids blurs the lines between what is acceptable and what is unacceptable, and the dubbed ghosts born from the personalities of the source take immense damage nonetheless. With each ghost dub acquiring a different experience, they're at risk of developing in a manner that strays from the personality of the original ghost, much like if you cloned yourself and your clones went on to pursue different careers in life and had subsequently different experiences. But it doesn't foundationally change each soul, as they operate based on their formative experiences, much like humans and much like the expectations of structuralism and Koestler. How does she disappear mid-fight? In the opening sequence, we see Major Motoko Kusanagi in a battle sequence after Section 6, the unit she works for, strikes a meeting she was spying on. Motoko assassinated a foreign diplomat immediately and then bolted in an exciting form of stealth mode wherein she first takes off her clothing and then jumps from a building, while her cyborg body camouflaged itself completely to blend in with the cityscape around her. This phenomenon, or rather feature of the cyborg, is known as the thermoptic camouflage, and this is what allows Major Kusanagi to disappear mid-fight. This ability was particularly useful for stealth fighting, covert missions, espionage, and bolting after getting the job done without having to engage in a battle that could result in physical damage. The ability is something her cyborg body comes with. It's not an external gadget attached to her like some fancy gun. Her skin, or suit and body, work to refract the lines around her so that it wipes her outline out, at least visually, and mirrors the scenery she's going commando around. This ability isn't unique to Major Kusanagi, however, as the technology is accessible to combat cyborgs, including members of Section 9, as well as their Takikoma tanks, allowing them to blend in with their environments and aiding surprise attacks or covert missions. Needless to say, this technology is the gold standard for stealth systems. However, the system isn't perfect, as sudden changes in the environment can cause visual glitches that give away a cyborg's position. There's also a faint distortion in the translucence of the body, and using this technology without a warrant is restricted, as it can be used to commit crimes of the highest order. How much does her body weigh, and how strong is she? Major Motoko Kusanagi is far heavier than she looks. This is due to density. She's not made of flesh and blood, she's made of titanium-based materials and dense synthetic muscle fibers. A pound of fat takes up more space than a pound of lean muscle. It's like the pound of feathers versus a pound of steel analogy, where they both weigh the same, but people assume the steel weighs more due to it being steel rather than feathers, but a pound is a pound. It's just that you would need a whole bunch of feathers in comparison to a small amount of steel. Now imagine the human body is the feather. For a steel-formed human to have the stature of a generic flesh and blood human would imply extreme weight differences. As a cyborg with a cyber brain, however, Major Kusanagi has fantastic and superhuman physical strength, speed, and agility, without which it would be impossible for her to maneuver her body around. In fact, she cannot carry her own titanium-borne materials within her body without the dense synthetic fibers fabricated to distribute such dense weight. As such, her fluid motion during battle sequences, especially during the battle against the tank in the climax, is a visual and architectural marvel owing to her anatomy. It proves how ridiculously strong she is when she jumps atop the tank and tries to force the latch open after an intense battle sequence. While she ultimately does fail at this, to the tank's credit, not her discredit, we see her muscles rippling intensely under her skin, visually establishing the level of pressure and strength she can output, and ultimately causing her own body to tear apart due to the skin ripping apart all over that muscle tension, leaving behind loose wires. During the sequence, we also see how her body temporarily becomes more masculine with its ultra-dense muscle composition. Her ultimate loss isn't due to a lack of strength, but rather due to her vessel not being able to sustain the same. But this also comes with a severely reduced buoyancy. She cannot float naturally, or rather, it's remarkably difficult for a dense android to swim the way a human does. But Kusunagi goes for night dives at the harbor anyways, not so much to train or enjoy, but due to the mental anguish within her in regards to her humanity or lack thereof. This internal crisis makes her take tremendous risks, and swimming is one of them. While Major Kusanagi does have the strength benefit when it comes to swimming, despite the density, it's still risky because she's swimming in the harbor, not at sea or in an ocean. But when she does swim, she looks to be at peace, one with nature, all while having a body that has nothing natural left in it. Coming to official numbers, fans generally estimate somewhere between 220 to 660 pounds, or 100 to 300 kilograms, for Major Motoko Kusanagi. 220 reads a little light to us since she's considered to be around 5'6" in height and much more muscular than the average woman, so even with a human body, she'd be around at least 140 pounds. Considering her entire body is hardware, 220 pounds strikes us as a little light. Our marvelous estimate is closer to 400 pounds normally, and 600 when she adopts the more masculine muscular form due to the titanium and synthetic muscles. Can she really leave her own body behind? Her consciousness isn't tied to one shell and can be relocated from one shell to the next, allowing her to leave her body behind. And this is crucial for someone like her, whose area of expertise is fourth-generation warfare and cyber brain combat. This means hacking and not diving, and she does it without leaving behind a trace, leading to her getting classified as a wizard-class gray hat hacker. She uses her ghost to move from one host to another, externally controlling up to 2 humanoid robots or drones from remote locations. She can also hack into military-grade wetware and bypass intense firewalls to see through the eyes of others and take control of their bodies. While she controls a remote-operated body with her ghost, she is referred to as a shell, not the real her, despite her ghost being the real her, while the cyborg body is the true shell where her ghost lives. Yet, it's the combination of Major Kusanagi's own cyborg body and ghost that is referred to as her. Can a full-body cyborg have a menstrual cycle? The film opens with a joke where Major Kusanagi, a female-bodied character, claims to be having that time of the month, but this joke only alludes to her humanity. The more we watch Ghost in the Shell, the more we realize that's just a joke because she cannot menstruate. For starters, she doesn't possess a reproductive system or genitals. If we're being specific, her physical body from the outside is like that of a Barbie. The series does this intentionally as it enjoys exploring the connection and contrast between biology and gender. This cyborg ecosystem explores a post-gender world. Major Kusanagi doesn't feel the shame a woman would feel when she's naked in public or in battle, and the show doesn't use nudity in a suggestive manner either. Everything is very raw and matter-of-fact, but due to her ghost, she retains a little bit of femininity she has never experienced by making a period joke, even though her cyber transformation happened way before she could even have a period. She doesn't feel particularly like a woman when it comes to shame, preferences, and overarching emotions because she hasn't experienced being a woman. Wait, can cyborgs even have sex? While the cyborgs in the film are more desexualized, the original manga versions can possess genitals as an option to emulate normal human life. As such, cyborgs can have sex, and Motoko in particular has strong sexual tendencies, as well as a boyfriend. But with this physiology, homosexual sex is especially compatible because that's how the cyborgs are made. In fact, heterosexual intercourse can be a pain. In the process known as e-sex, a user can link their nervous system with that of the person they're doing the deed with and exchange simultaneous sensations. If you've been watching Black Mirror, there was an episode like this in the latest season. Motoko has highly sensitive skin compared to other cyborgs, allowing her and her cyber-linked partners to feel more. This Bluetooth-like stimulation and orgasm technique works well for 2 people from the same sex, but it can be exceptionally painful for the opposite sex, unlike in Black Mirror, as stimulation of organs the other doesn't have tends to cause pain. As such, heterosexual sex is illegal. Why can't anyone hack the Major herself? You know how people who gossip the most hide their secrets the best? Similarly, a hacking wizard like Motoko has the most intense firewall up in her system, thus preventing others from hacking into her cyber brain. Not just her, but Section 9 cyborgs are specifically crafted in a way that will protect them from ghost hackings of all sorts. Motoko's wetware is protected with military-grade malware protection, but she can hack into others when others have the same. However, as a Section 9 cyborg, can she come back even if her body is destroyed? Yes, we see this happen in the climax after her physical body is ripped apart following the tank sequence. In fact, with Kusunagi's skin ripping apart from the force generated by her own body, she goes on to take a hit from the tank itself, who, despite struggling against the Major, now manages to get a hold of her distorted self when she's left incapable of movement. Fortunately for the Major, she's saved in time by her partner, Bato. He goes on to acquire her cyber brain, which has survived the destruction of her body, and he connects it to the brain of the Puppet Master. This leads to a dialogue between the Major and the Puppet Master, where he introduces the concepts of reproduction and mortality to her, claiming that he wishes to exist in a brain that can die. Ultimately, their ghosts are merged and Kusunagi gains all of his abilities. Soon after, Section 6 comes in to torch the building, but Bato protects her cyber brain, which now possesses the merged ghosts of both her and the Puppet Master, with the latter's shell being destroyed. When she awakens, she has a new child-sized shell, but due to the merging, claims herself to be a different kind of entity in comparison to both Kusunagi and Puppet Master. Their wall is much more intense. Even without merging with Puppet Master, Kusunagi could continue to exist with her brain and her ghost, with it being shifted into a different shell, since the ghost seems to be part and parcel of the brain instead of a separate biological substance in the body. After all, we are who we are because of our brains. You could say that emotions are dependent on hormones such as serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine, and while serotonin is mostly synthesized in the gastrointestinal tract, it is a neurotransmitter first and foremost. A tract for synthesizing that hormone could be mechanically built for a cyborg. Overall, Major Kusanagi, and any cyborg for that matter, could come back despite the destruction of their shells as long as their wetware remained intact, stripping them of their mortality unless the brain too is destroyed. For me, it's the philosophy of Ghost in the Shell that stands out the most. Don't get me wrong, I love the cyberpunk world building, but what makes this genre so close to my heart is the techno horror within. And no series does it better than Ghost in the Shell, as it blurs the lines between man and machine and redefines what it means to be human. With that, we wrap up our video, and we really hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. Let us know your opinions down in the comments, and if you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that we know to make more stuff like this in the future. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time.